Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Becoming a God at Level 100 from Hunter. Chapter 1 Crossing the X-Hunter Test Site. Where is this place? Luolin opened his eyes and looked around blankly. Here, it seems to be a box in a restaurant, and he is sitting on a chair in front of the dining table. But, how could he be in such a place? He remembered that he stayed up late last night to brush the screen until after 3 o'clock, and he fell asleep because he was so sleepy. Why did he open his eyes? Etc. How come this line is so familiar? Luolin fell into deep thought. Damn, did I time travel? Luolin was shocked. In the 10 time travel novels, 6 or 7 of the main characters said this when they just woke up. How could he not be familiar with these words? If I really crossed over, then here is. Luolin's heart tightened, and he quickly looked around to see if there was any useful information. Suddenly, a small screen on the wall directly above him caught his attention. 59, 60, 61. Luolin looked at the ever-increasing numbers, and the faint sense of weightlessness he had long felt. I'm not in a box in some restaurant, but in a downward elevator. Luolin asked with a question mark on his face. It's not that he was puzzled by the fact that he had traveled into the elevator. For him, it's not a problem to travel to the restaurant box or to the elevator, the problem is. Similar to the elevator in the restaurant box, this plot, he is familiar with it. There is a perfectly fitting scene at the beginning of Hunter x Hunter, which just stayed up late last night. So, have I traveled to the Hunter x Hunter world? Or am I on the elevator to the Hunter venue? Luolin now only feels his head buzzing. Luolin looked at the familiar hands and pajamas. Although there is no mirror or other evidence, Luolin feels that he should be wearing something right. But the problem is, how did he slip into the Hunter test and take the Hunter test with his fitness? How many dishes? Drink like this? But Luolin is not too worried about his own safety. After all, the first level of the Hunter test is a long-distance run of at least 80 kilometers, and there is almost no possibility of a fight. And with his physical fitness, this is also the so-called as long as I am enough trash, no one can kill me. B. Hollow down pointing triangle D. Now the problem is, he has time traveled, and he may even have time traveled into a 2-dimensional world like Hunter. Superpower. No, it's Nen, the real extraordinary power is beckoning to him. By the way, I don't know if I have any benefits for time travelers. Luolin suddenly remembered that time travelers usually have cheating cheats. System panel. Luolin tried to shout softly. In the next moment, a translucent page popped up in Luolin's perspective. Damn it, there really is. Luolin's face was full of surprise. He didn't expect that he entered the correct password for the first test. He is also a time traveler. You must know that there is a difference between the sky and the earth if the traverser is hooked or not. Open black lens bracket 100 level ascension system close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket name. Luolin close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket level. 0/0/1 close black lens bracket. Properties. Disabled. Open black lens bracket world. Hunter x Hunter close black lens bracket. 100 level becoming a god system. Luolin looked at the domineering name of his own system with satisfaction. 100 level becoming a god, it seems that the system for fighting monsters and upgrading is out of order. Luolin was a little happy in his heart. Although monster fighting and upgrading were not the most comfortable configurations in the system, they were definitely top of the line configurations. The attribute is not enabled, so the system needs to be upgraded to level 1. Luolin looked at his own system panel and began to think. Upgrading to a level seems to be quite simple. After all, judging from the experience bar behind the level, a little experience can be upgraded. Just as Luolin was studying the panel of his own system, there was a sudden beep, accompanied by a weak vibration, and the elevator stopped. Here we are. Luolin was slightly taken aback, looking at the slowly opening elevator door, hesitated for a moment before getting ready to go out. To be honest, after the system awakened, Luolin actually wanted to quit the Hunter test and upgrade quickly to start his cheating life. But now that we have arrived at the venue of the Hunter test, wouldn't it be a loss if we don't experience the Hunter test for ourselves? Even if it's just a soy sauce in the first game, it's not an experience. By the way, this time travel is quite considerate. You didn't just throw my bare feet over here. Remember to give me the slippers by the bed. Luolin walked out of the elevator wearing a pair of pajamas and stepping on a pair of flip-flops. To be honest, if Luolin didn't find out about the system, he would definitely abstain from going out in this outfit, but now it's important to participate. However, Luolin had only just stepped out of the elevator with one foot. Ah! A shrill scream suddenly sounded. Luolin shivered subconsciously. What the hell? In the crowd not far away, a person was kneeling on the ground and screaming, holding up two arms with only their roots left. Is that Hisoka? Luolin froze for a moment, then remembered the plot. Isn't this the plot of Hisoka's debut? I arrived at the venue after Gon and the others. Luolin instantly understood his playing time. But, because of Hisoka's performance, no one seemed to notice his presence. Luolin didn't care too much, stepped out of the elevator and stood by the wall to watch the show, while looking up and down the walls and ceiling of the underground passage around Hisoka. As for Hisoka's magic, when he debuted, Luolin, as a Hunter fan, has also paid attention to and discussed with others. The final conclusion is that in the manga, Hisoka stuck the man's hands with stretchable love, then cut them off instantly, and hid the stretchable love on the ceiling. If it is an animated version, Hisoka will use more frivolous illusions to change a little flower. Although the man's broken arm was not found, the guess should be correct. Tisk tisk, this Hisoka really doesn't care about his ability being known. Luolin sighed in his heart. Although almost all the Hunter candidates present could not understand how to read, if you think about it for a while, you will know that the examiners from the Hunter Association must be on the side. This kind of use of nen to bully common people, for a real senior nen user, I am afraid that Hisoka's nen can be judged in an instant. But Hisoka really didn't care whether his abilities would be known or not. Chapter 2. Here, your number plate. While Luolin was watching the play, a voice suddenly came from the side, and at the same time, a hand was passed over. Luolin looked down and saw that the oily bean-faced man was handing him a number plate with the number 406. Oh, thank you. Luolin took the number plate and looked at the back of Dumian man leaving with curiosity in his eyes. Non-human intelligent life. And Luolin is really curious whether this bean-faced man is an animal or a plant. But obviously, as the chief secretary of the Hunter Association, Luolin has little chance to study the Domian people. Ring ring ring. Just when Luolin was in a pity, the loud alarm clock reverberated wildly in this underground tunnel. Almost everyone present heard the sound and looked over. On the pipe in the wall of the underground tunnel, Satats, the examiner of the first Hunter test, stood on it with a calm face. The reporting time is over, and the Hunter test has officially begun. Satats jumped down from the pipe nimbly, and faced the many Hunter candidates present with a calm face. Please come with me. After speaking, Satats walked down the tunnel to the depths. All the candidates present looked at each other in blank dismay, but they still followed. I would like to state in advance that the Hunter test is extremely cruel. Unlucky or insufficient strength can easily lead to injury or even death. It has happened from time to time that candidates have been disabled for life. Those who retreat, please turn around and go back, and those who are not afraid of death, please follow me. Satats's voice was not loud, but it was clearly heard by the more than 400 people present. As a result, naturally no one chose to give up. Even if it is Luolin, he is going to run 3 to 5 kilometers to get a sense of participation. Satats in front of him nodded slightly and said softly, without hearing any candidate giving up, I understand. There are 405 Hunter candidates participating in the first test. I haven't introduced myself yet. I am Satats, the examiner of the first test. I will then take you to the venue of the second test. As Satats spoke, his steps gradually increased, striding forward in a weird running posture. At this time, the candidates who followed Satats curiously asked why they went directly to the second test, but these Luolin can no longer hear. How to say, running in flip-flops was more strenuous than he had imagined. Luolin just ran behind the crowd with a click, and was getting farther and farther away from the crowd. But Luolin is not in a hurry, anyway, he does not intend to pass the Hunter test. While running slowly, Luolin opened his own system panel and began to study it. Although this system panel is so simple that there is nothing worth studying at all, but the appearance and disappearance of this thought can make Luolin spend a whole day at night. 10 minutes later, Huchi. Luolin stopped and panted heavily. I've only run 2 kilometers. Luolin looked up, but the backs of the group of hunter candidates were completely invisible in front of him. In fact, under normal circumstances, although Luolin's physical strength is not as good as that of the perverts of the hunter candidates, it is not enough to pant like this after 2 kilometers. It is really that the slippers on the feet are not suitable for running. Go back. Luolin looked at the deep tunnel in front of him and was about to turn his head back. Although it is a bit embarrassing to go back after only running 2 kilometers, if you continue to run, you will not pass the first test, and if you run a little longer, you will have to run a little longer when you turn back. The Hunter Association was not so kind as to arrange personnel to pick up the candidates who fell behind in the tunnel, and finally had to turn around and walk back. Just when Luolin turned to go back, suddenly, the system panel in front of him made Luolin stunned, and the steps to turn around also stopped. Open black lens bracket 100 level ascension system close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket name, Luolin close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket level, 0 1/1 plus. Properties, disabled. Open black lens bracket world, Hunter x Hunter close black lens bracket. Experience, where did it come from? Luolin looked at the experience that could be upgraded after her level with a dazed expression. Etc. Luolin's expression froze suddenly. Although his system has levels, it seems that no one has told him that it is a system for fighting monsters and upgrading. That is to say, Luolin thinks that the reason why he is most likely to gain experience in this half day is the 2 kilometers of running just now. It's the training upgrade system. Luolin's face suddenly changed. Although thanks to the training and upgrading system, he was able to upgrade, but compared to fighting monsters and upgrading, training and upgrading is not an ordinary hard work. Maybe you can fight monsters and upgrade. Although Luolin was praying in his heart, he clicked the plus sign behind the level with excitement. Fighting monsters or exercising to gain experience will be discussed later, the most important thing now is to upgrade. The moment Luolin clicked the upgrade button, a warm current appeared out of nowhere from Luolin's chest, and instantly spread throughout his body. At this moment, Luolin only felt that his whole body was warm, and Luolin couldn't help being intoxicated by the unprecedented comfort. The warm current that nourished the body had long since disappeared, and it took a full 10 seconds before Luolin recovered from that state. That's the feeling of leveling up. Luolin had a little evil desire on his face. He felt that he wanted to level up now, not because of the power he might get after leveling up, but because the feeling of leveling up was so comfortable. After reluctantly letting go for a while, Luolin called out the system panel again. Open black lens bracket 100 level ascension system close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket name, Luolin close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket level, 1/1000 close black lens bracket. Vitality, 1. Open black lens bracket spiritual power, 1 close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket world, Hunter x Hunter close black lens bracket. Number of traversal times, 1. 1000 experience to upgrade to level 2. So, upgrading to a level is a great gift package for beginners. Luolin thought to himself, not paying too much attention to it, 1000 experience, isn't it 2 to 3000 kilometers? It seems that there are quite a lot. Life force, spiritual force. Looking at his 2 extra attributes, Luolin raised his eyebrows slightly. Although somewhat abstract, the attribute of vitality should be his physical aspect, and the attribute of mental strength should be his spiritual soul aspect. A little bit, I don't know what level it is. Luolin felt his current body thoughtfully. Perhaps, he could really try to take this hunter test. Luolin looked at the deep tunnel in front of him, with a look of fire in his eyes. If it is possible, of course he also wants to pass the hunter test directly. After all, becoming a hunter is definitely the safest and most comprehensive way to get in touch with Nien. Just as Luolin was looking at the tunnel in front of him, he suddenly saw an inconspicuous line under the system panel out of the corner of his eye. Number of traversal times, 1. Number of traversal times. Luolin narrowed his eyes suddenly. What's the meaning? Time travel. Can he travel back to Earth? Or, can travel to a new world? ... Luolin looked at the traversal button on the system panel and was speechless for a long time. After a long time, call. Luolin exhaled deeply. Instead of looking at this option, he chose to ignore it for the time being. After all, no matter whether it is traveling back to the Earth or traveling to a new world, for Luolin, he is not ready for this. Let's pretend it doesn't exist for the time being. Luolin shook his head slightly, and folded the last line with the folding function he discovered when he was playing with the system panel before, and chose to see what is out of sight. Run, catch up with the big troops first. Luolin ran along the tunnel without hesitation. Chapter 3. Woohoo! Luolin ran excitedly in the underground tunnel. When Luolin was not moving before, he could only feel his body was full of vitality, but after running, Luolin realized how amazing his upgraded physical fitness was. He had never felt such an easy run before. Vitality really refers to the power of life, and all physical factors such as strength, speed, explosive power, endurance, etc. may be included in it. And I don't know if it's because of the spiritual force corresponding to the vitality, Luolin has not felt that he is out of control in the slightest, even though his physical fitness has been tyrannized by an unknown number of times. On the contrary, Luolin has never felt that he has truly controlled his body as he does now. Now he seems to be able to easily manipulate his body to do any movements that do not violate the structure of the human body. Even the beating of the heart, the flow of blood, the contraction and expansion of muscles, the breathing in and out of the lungs, and any changes in the body, Luolin can faintly feel it. Amazing. Luolin looked at the level 1 Peugeot on his system panel, and the name of the system, 100 level Chungshun system. If he can reach level 100, Luolin feels that maybe he can really become a god. Luolin was extremely excited. Even with flip-flops, his physical fitness didn't affect his running speed much. It didn't take 2 minutes for Luolin to catch up with the large group easily, and followed at the end of the group without attracting anyone's attention. From the beginning to the end, I am afraid that none of the candidates noticed Luolin, who was behind for a while and then caught up. But Luolin slowed down after catching up with the large group, and he didn't have much interest in running to the front to show off. He is very clear that the next part of the road is still very long. Rather than running to the front to attract attention now, it is better to slowly study your own system panel in the back. Especially the way of gaining experience, as well as the efficiency of gaining. Luolin saw that he needed 1,000 experience points to level up again, and he was already secretly praying that the efficiency of gaining experience would not change. However, 30 minutes later, Luolin looked at the system panel with 0 experience and sighed. Hope was dashed. When he was level 0 before, he only gained a little experience after running 2 or 3 kilometers, but now. In 30 minutes, I ran at least 5 kilometers, but there was no change in experience points. More than an hour later, when Luolin estimated that he had run about 10 kilometers, Luolin finally saw the experience beating on his system panel, changing from 0 to 1. You need to run 10 kilometers to gain some experience. Luolin's face was already tangled. He needs 1,000 points of experience to upgrade to level 2, which means 10,000 kilometers. Even in addition to running, he should be able to gain experience from other exercises, but Luolin can already imagine the scene where he will become an exercise madman in the future. I hope I can fight monsters and upgrade. Luolin sighed slightly, and continued to run along with the hunter candidates. 1 hour. 2 hours. In the blink of an eye, more than 4 hours passed, and Luolin had already run more than 50 kilometers behind the main force. It is worth mentioning that so far none of the candidates has fallen behind, and even the 50-kilometer long-distance run has not allowed a few candidates to reach the limit. Of course, that doesn't include the already gasping Leorio next to Luolin. Although it is known from the anime that Leorio is only 18 or 19 years old, Luolin still feels that Leorio looks like an uncle in his 30s and 40s. Perhaps, this is also a kind of talent. When entering the peak period of the human body, it is still in the period of rapid physical development. Luolin couldn't help complaining in his heart. When is it going to run? Leorio looked at the hunter candidates in front of him who didn't slow down at all, with a look of disbelief. The 50-kilometer long-distance run lasted 4 to 5 hours, and Leorio was already sweating profusely. Let alone 50 kilometers, even 30 kilometers, Leorio has never run in one breath in his life. However, what made him even more desperate was, so far, no candidate has shown the same fatigue as him. Monsters, all monsters. Leorio already felt his limit. Hunter test, it's not something common people like me can participate in. Leorio gradually staggered. However, are you kidding? With a sudden roar, the veins on Leorio's forehead popped out, and the handbag in his hand was gone, and the whole person exploded, striding wildly and sprinting. Luolin had quick eyes and quick hands, and stepped forward to pick up Leorio's suitcase. Although he doesn't intend to mix into the protagonist team, the people in the protagonist team are quite suitable to be friends, and there are filters from the original book. Luolin naturally does not want to let go of this opportunity to intervene. Holding Leorio's handbag, Luolin speeded up a little and caught up with Leorio directly. Hey, uncle, your bag is lost. Luolin smiled and reached out to hand the bag to Leorio. Leorio's forehead was bulging with veins, although he was very grateful for someone to send his bag back, but age is the eternal pain in his heart, especially Luolin, a young man who looks like he is in his 20s, calls him uncle. Damn it, who are you calling uncle? I'm only 18 years old. Leorio roared angrily. Liar, Luolin complained without hesitation. Haha, let me tell you, uncle, there is absolutely no way you are only a teenager. Kahlua with silver hair trotted over and laughed at him. Bastard. Leorio became even more annoyed immediately. Brother, give me Leorio's bag. Gon ran to Luolin and said with a smile. Here. Luolin didn't hesitate, and handed the bag directly to Gon, and by the way, Gon and Kahlua took a few glances at it with great interest. This is the so-called protagonist in the early stage of this world. To be honest, many people in the previous life didn't like Gon very much because of the plot of the Ant chapter, but Luolin actually didn't care. After all, Kate, who is like a brother like a father, does not know whether he is alive or dead. Let alone a child. How many adults can maintain reason, make appropriate judgments, and execute them calmly? Of course, the most important reason is, this brat can't bear him. As for another Kahlua, in the previous life, he was definitely a real group favorite, much more likable than Gon, and of course, much harder to get close to. Kahlua, who just escaped from the Zoldyck family, is definitely the most inaccessible period now. Not everyone is as innocent as Gon. But Luolin is not ready to touch these two little radish heads now. On the contrary, Luolin wants to get close to Leorio's uncle face. I said uncle, you are wearing a formal suit and a pair of big leather shoes, are you really here to participate in the hunter test? Luolin ran to Leorio in flip-flops and smiled and pointed out. Leorio's mouth twitched slightly, looking at Luolin's obvious pajamas, and the slap flip-flops under his feet. There was a black line on his head. Only you are not qualified to talk about me. Hey, but I can run. Luolin chuckled, slapped past Leorio and ran to the front. Hateful. Seeing a pair of flip-flops in front of him, Leorio suddenly became irritable again. But having said that, Leorio did listen to Luolin's words. Although there was no way to change the leather shoes, Leorio took off his suit and shirt without any hesitation, wrapped them around his waist, and started running shirtless. Chapter 4. After Luolin made fun of Leorio, he didn't move closer. Although Leorio broke through the limit, the physical strength of the other party obviously has not yet reached the level where he can run while chatting. Another hour passed, and the first hunter test had started for 6 hours. At the same time, a group of hunter candidates also ran in this underground passage for 6 hours. As for the distance, Luolin's level of experience has just changed to 8 points, and the total distance is more than 80 kilometers, which is almost the distance of 2 full marathons. It has to be said that because of the existence of Nen, the human body limit in Hunter's world is much higher than that of Luolin's previous life. Even common people who have not learned Nen still have weak life energy to nourish their bodies. Common people can't see it yet, but as long as you have a little qualifications, a firm will, and persistent exercise, you can easily have a physical fitness far beyond ordinary people. Hunter candidates who can take the hunter test undoubtedly belong to this category. In the long-distance running of more than 80 kilometers, so far only one little fat man was calculated to break the psychological defense line and lead to elimination, and all members persisted. But the first elimination point is here. Luolin watched the front suddenly change from a flat underground tunnel to a stairway extending upwards. After just running an 80-kilometer long-distance run without supplements, the second stage of the first half of the first test of the Hunter test climbing stairs officially debuted. Judging from the elevator in the box restaurant before, the Hunter tunnels are at least as deep as 100 floors underground. And as long as the position of the exit is not equal to the position of the entrance, the stairs must be as high as they are higher. Luolin can already hear the wailing of many candidates who have no confidence in themselves. Of course, the wailing is the wailing, and none of them gave up directly at the entrance of the stairs. Luolin trotted up the stairs indifferently. His upgraded physical fitness was simply outrageous. With this level of physical exertion, Luolin even felt like he could run for a whole day. Slightly dodging a candidate who was resting on the stairs, Luolin suddenly saw a long knife next to a candidate higher up. Luolin paused for a moment, then picked it up as he ran over. Well, if he is so tired, he can just do it and help the other party reduce the burden. If he loses this burden, he will run up. Luolin was almost moved by his kindness. Compared with the first half of the 80-kilometer long-distance run, although more runners were eliminated in the second half of the stair climbing, it took less time. In just 10 minutes, Luolin had already seen the light from the exit of the tunnel above. Arrive. Luolin rushed out of the tunnel, and what he saw was a relatively wide open space, where the examiners and early candidates gathered. But the distance is covered by dense fog, which is not really seen. I don't know if it's because the examiner Satats calculated the time well, but as the door above the exit closed, the dense fog in front of him gradually dispersed. What appeared in front of many candidates was a vast and boundless jungle. At a glance, even the undulating mountains in the distance are all green, and many candidates are a little dazed. After all, the first thought in their minds is that the next step is not to ask them to go through this forest. Next we're going to pass through this wetland of demerit, also known as the lair of fraudsters. Satats's voice came at this moment, confirming that the candidate's intuition was good. Although, candidates do not want this intuition to be correct, but their wishes obviously do not affect the examiner Satats. I only heard Satats continue to say to the candidates, the rare and exotic beasts living in this wetland are cunning by nature, and will use all means to deceive their prey, and then prey on them. Once they are fooled, they will die, so please follow closely, behind me. The examiner's words are really strange. You know someone is going to lie to you. What kind of idiot would be fooled? Leorio, who was shirtless beside him, looked disdainful. Don't be fooled. I told you I wouldn't be fooled. The sudden roar made Leorio subconsciously turn his head to answer. Many candidates present also looked at it curiously. A wounded young man came out from the side of the exit of the passage, holding a strange beast with a monkey body and a human face in his hand. He's a fake examiner. The embarrassed young man shouted loudly, and at the same time turned the face of the strange beast in his hand to everyone. Suddenly, many candidates were in an uproar. The face of the alien beast in the young man's hand was at least 80% similar to that of the examiner Satats. What happened? That monkey looks exactly like the examiner. At this time, the embarrassed young man began to explain with both voice and emotion. The man-faced ape is a strange beast inhabiting the Chimera wetland. It likes human flesh, but because its hands and feet are slender and weak, it can only pretend to be a human to lure people into the wetland and then join other creatures to prey on them. His purpose is to kill the hunter candidates. Catch them all. Real or fake? No way. The candidates were once again in an uproar, and many candidates were at a loss for what to do. Some even believed it and looked at the examiner Satats with ill intentions. Like, sure enough, that bastard. Leorio looked at Satats with a look on his face that I could see through, as if he wanted to do something if he disagreed. Seeing the noisy hunter candidates, a faint smile flashed in the eyes of the embarrassed young man, but shua, shua, shua. 3 poker chips suddenly flew from a distance, and shot into the embarrassed young man one after another, 2 stuck in the chest, and 1 went straight into the forehead, killing him. And the other side, examiner Satats easily caught the same 3 poker cards shot to the head and chest. Mozambique shooting. Luolin watched the scene with great interest. Although he is not a fan of military affairs, as a hardcore novel lover, Luolin can't remember where he read it. 2 consecutive shots to the chest and 1 shot to the head is a short-range shooting technique that can quickly disable the target's ability to resist, or even permanently lose the ability to resist. But, should praise the upgraded body again. Luolin was able to clearly see the moment Hisoka shot just now. He even felt that if the poker was shot at him, he could even dodge it. Of course, if you want to use your hands directly like the examiner Satats, Luolin can't guarantee it. The correct answer has been revealed. Among the crowd, Hisoka chuckled and shuffled the playing cards in his hands. Obviously, the poker chips shot at the fake examiner youth and Satats just now were all from him. The examiner of the hunter test is appointed by the review committee to be the current professional hunter. As the goal of our efforts, it is impossible to escape to this extent. Hisoka said with a smile. Let me just take it as a compliment. Satats threw away the poker cards in his hand and said with a blank expression, but from now on, if you attack me again for any reason, I will immediately disqualify the attacker from the exam, understand what? Got it. Hisoka chuckled nonchalantly. At this time, a few vultures suddenly flew down from the sky, feasting on the body of the dead young man. At this scene, many candidates were stunned. This is the fate of the losers, it's the natural law of this jungle. Examiner Satats said lightly. I think he wants to create chaos, and take the opportunity to take a few people as prey. I'm afraid many of you have been bewitched just now. Things like this happen in this jungle all the time, so please be careful. Along with Satats's words, many people in the candidate crowd suddenly laughed. Again, like someone, how is it possible, knowing that someone is coming to deceive people, no idiot will fall for it. Luolin stood next to Leorio and said with a righteous face. Leorio blushed and shouted directly, no road race. Luolin, FK, where did you get so arrogant? Chapter 5, Lost Merle Wetlands. Many candidates followed the examiner Satats to move towards it. However, as the crowd entered, the dense fog that had dispersed before quietly rose, and the visibility was rapidly decreasing. It stands to reason that Luolin, who has known this for a long time, should follow the examiner Satats closely to prevent falling behind and not finding a way out, but Luolin did not. After all, compared to the not so difficult hunter exam, Luolin now wants to try whether fighting monsters and upgrading can gain experience. By the way, also test his current skills. Coming. Luolin suddenly exerted force on his feet and jumped up. And in the dense fog nearby, a huge head poked out. After Luolin flashed past, that head turned around nimbly and bit the candidate on the other side. What a flexible neck. Luolin clenched the long knife in his hand. Although he didn't know how to use a knife, at this time, he just swung the knife with his strength and speed. Luolin licked the corner of his mouth, took a sudden step forward, and swung the knife down forcefully. Although the posture was unreasonable, the speed at which it erupted in that instant was simply terrifying. The nimble head protruding from the thick fog didn't respond at all, and was directly slashed by the blade. With a swing of the knife, Luolin jumped back again, dodging the gushing blood. Feel, it's nothing. Luolin waved the knife in his hand, shaking off the blood on the knife. Maybe it's because he was born with a big heart. It's obviously the first time to kill such a large wild animal, and it's still a way of beheading, but Luolin doesn't feel any discomfort at this time, and even feels a little excited. But, when Luolin saw the motionless system panel, his face sank slightly. Maybe I haven't killed enough. The value of this level of experience is quite high. I can only gain a little experience by running 10 kilometers. Luolin comforted himself in his heart. 10 minutes later, Luolin casually threw away the long knife that was still dripping with blood. What time is he wasting? Never mind. Luolin sighed slightly. It doesn't matter if you can't fight monsters and upgrade, relying on the strength from exercise is more at ease. Luolin comforted himself in his heart. Well, the experience gained from exercise is used to upgrade, and it also depends on the strength gained from exercise. In the dense fog, Luolin heard the footsteps of the large army in the distance, and rushed in that direction. Although he has been killing in the Mile wetland, Luolin also deliberately controlled the distance, not too far away from the main force. After all, if he got lost in this jungle, he might have no problem protecting himself, but it would be almost impossible to find the venue for the second test. And just when Luolin calmed down and gradually approached the large army, there was a sudden commotion in the nearby forest. Luolin thought it was some kind of monster, and looked over it defensively. However, in the next moment, Luolin's pupils suddenly shrank when the thick fog shrouded the woods over there. Hisoka. Luolin's heart suddenly trembled. What was going on in the woods over there was Hisoka's examiner game. And at this time, the examiner's game has obviously entered the end. Hisoka was pinching Gon's neck with a look of perverted pleasure. But did Hisoka's examiner game start so early? Luolin remembers, it should be near the end of this test that this plot came to it. I don't know if it's because Gon aroused Hisoka's fruit farmer attributes. Hisoka's heart is full of killing intent now. Luolin just made a slight movement here, and in the next moment, a playing card flew over directly. FK, Luolin exclaimed in his heart, and dodged directly without the slightest hesitation. Hisoka tilted his head slightly, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes, but then it turned into surprise. That's great. It's another good seedling. Hisoka licked the corner of his mouth, and his eyes gradually became hot. As an excellent fruit farmer, the more good fruits, the better. Leaving Gon, who was strangling his neck casually, Hisoka looked at Gon and Luolin not far away with a smile. Don't worry, I didn't kill your companion, because he was qualified, and you were also qualified, all of you are qualified. Hisoka gave a very kind smile. However, neither Luolin, who knew Hisoka's attributes, nor Gon, who almost died in Hisoka's hands just now, felt no kindness at all. Unlucky, unlucky, unlucky. Luolin looked at the back of Hisoka carrying Leorio and turning away, with a helpless face. Hunter watched it 3 or 4 times, but he never noticed that this episode happened so early. It has only been 10 minutes since we entered the dense fog. Trouble, Luolin sighed. Of course, it's just a hassle. After all, Hisoka is a well-known fruit farmer, and he will never kill him before the fruit is ripe, and when the fruit is ripe, that is, after Luolin grows up, he really doesn't have to be afraid of Hisoka. Hey, are you all right, kid? Luolin walked to Gon's side, looked at Gon who was still in a daze and asked. No. Nothing. Gon shook his head quickly as if he had been awakened, but then he turned his head and rubbed his neck again and fell into deep thought. No, it's not so much thought, it's more like aftertaste. Luolin was speechless when he saw it. The aftertaste is okay. Anyone with hunter qualifications is a pervert. Gon. In the thick fog in the distance, Kurapika ran back. Gon, are you okay? At this moment when his friend returned, Gon came back to his senses completely, and said with a silly smile, it's all right. Kurapika looked at Gon, and after confirming that it was all right, he breathed a sigh of relief and asked, where's Leorio? He was taken away by Hisoka. Gon answered truthfully. Taken away by Hisoka. Kurapika was startled, and then became anxious. Although he and Leorio had only known each other for a few days, there was no doubt that he and Leorio had become friends. And it was the first friend I made since that incident. Don't worry, Hisoka won't kill you, Luolin said from the side. It's a pity for Hisoka now. You are. Kurapika looked at Luolin. Luolin, an unlucky guy who was affected. Luolin spread his hands and said. Brother Luolin, what did you mean when you said that it's a pity now? Gon asked suddenly. From the very beginning, he was reminiscing. Oh no, he was thinking about why Hisoka let him and Leorio go. It literally means, for Hisoka, it's a pity to kill you now. You have the potential to grow stronger and better, and it will be more enjoyable to kill you when the time comes. Luolin explained a little. Quote. Is he a pervert? Kurapika was taken aback for a moment, and then gave a very agreeable evaluation to Hisoka. You're right, Luolin nodded approvingly. It has the potential to grow stronger and more outstanding. Gon looked down at his hands at this time and thought about it again. On the way to the second examination room. The dense fog has gradually dispersed. In other words, they have gradually left the wetlands covered with thick fog and came to another area. At this time, somewhere in the jungle, there was a fork in the road. This way. Gon sniffed with his nose slightly raised, and then ran straight in one direction. Behind, Luolin and Kurapika followed closely, with the same blank expression on their faces. According to Gon, Leorio's perfume smells so unique that he can smell it even miles away, so he is following this smell. For this answer, Kurapika showed doubts of, are you a dog? Although Luolin already knew the answer, he was also speechless. Although Gon said that Leorio's perfume smelled unique, he didn't say that Leorio's perfume smelled very strong. In fact, the scent of Leorio's perfume is the concentration of normal men's perfume, which can only be faintly smelled by normal people within a range of about 1 meter. And Luolin, even with an upgraded and evolved nose, can only ask about the scent of Leorio's perfume within a range of 20 meters. But Gon's few kilometers has seriously exceeded the standard. However, looking at the noisy park with more than 100 people gathered in front, both Luolin and Kurapika had to admit that Gon's nose is indeed a dog. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Chapter 6. Gon, Kurapika, over there. Luolin pointed to the edge of the crowd. Over there, Leorio was leaning against a big tree with a dazed expression, touching the wound on his face and looking at the sky. Leorio, Gon and Kurapika hurried over. Gon, Kurapika. Leorio smiled at the two friends who ran over, but then grinned with a wound on his face. It hurts. Leorio touched his right cheek with a dazed expression. Why did I get hurt? I can't even remember what happened after I entered the wetland. Forehead. Seeing Leorio's confused look, Gon and Kurapika blinked and decided not to tell Leorio what happened before. As for Luolin, after showing Gon and Kurapika the way, he didn't follow. The protagonist group is exchanging feelings. What is he going to do? Randomly looking for a corner in the crowd, Luolin called out his system panel again and looked at it. Open black lens bracket 100 level ascension system close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket name, Luolin close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket level, 114 1,000ths close black lens bracket. Vitality, 1. Open black lens bracket spiritual power, 1 close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket world, Hunter x Hunter close black lens bracket. 14 points of experience. Luolin looked at the experience points behind his level and thought about it. For his system panel, Luolin has always paid attention to it along the way. Among them, he gained 8 experience points in the first half of the first test, and he gained 2 experience points on the subsequent stairs. Finally, there is the last section of the Shimmel wetland, and he has gained 4 points of experience. If this system is really for gaining experience through exercise, then the intensity of the exercise should also affect the efficiency of experience acquisition. Luolin had a guess in his mind. After all, if he gained a little experience from the 10-kilometer run he guessed at the beginning, it is impossible for the stair climb to be 20 kilometers long. Therefore, it can only be because the intensity of climbing stairs is stronger than that of Common's long-distance running, so more experience is gained. Then it was the same in the Shimmel wetland. Although not very precise, the total distance through the Chimera wetland was less than 30 kilometers, but he gained 4 points of experience. On the premise that killing monsters will not gain experience, it can only be because the intensity of running in the jungle wetland is higher than that of common long-distance running. The higher the intensity of exercise, the more experience you will gain. Calculated in this way, the 1,000 points of experience needed to level up doesn't seem like much. Luolin's mouth curled up slightly. There is finally good news for this system. Every candidate has worked hard. This is Biscayne Park, the venue for the second exam. Goodbye everyone, and good luck to everyone. Examiner Satats finished speaking to many candidates, and walked into the forest when he came with a strange goose step. However, after entering the forest, Satats actually did not leave. Instead, he found a big tree with a good location and climbed up. He took out a monocular and looked at the venue of the second test from a distance. If the examiners of the second test are Menchi and Buhachi, I hope there will be no accidents. Satats sighed silently in his heart. After Satats left, the closed door of the second test was slowly opened. In the park, the first thing that caught the examinees' eyes was rows of extremely neat stoves, which made many people present stunned. But then they all went in. Candidates, welcome to come. I am the examiner of the second test, Menchi. In front of the building in the deepest part of the park, a woman with a hot figure and quite bold clothes sat on the sofa, and behind her sat a very large, thick and fat man. I'm the examiner Buhachi. And at the moment when Buhachi finished speaking, bursts of loud grunts came to everyone's ears. Buhachi, you're already hungry. Menchi smiled slightly looking up at her companion behind her. Well, I'm about to starve to death. Buhachi rubbed his stomach with an aggrieved expression on his face. In that case, Menchi turned her face to look at the candidates and showed a smile. The content of the second test is decided to be cooking. Cooking. Cook. Many candidates were stunned for a moment. Although the hearth they visited in the park made them guess about the content of the next exam, they still couldn't understand after hearing it. You know, they are here to participate in the hunter test. What the hell is cooking? Why is the test content about cooking? Some candidates couldn't help asking loudly. Why cooking? Men-chi tilted her head at the front, and then said with a proud smile, if you want to ask why, of course it's because we are food hunters. However, gourmet hunter, hunter for hunting, it's really suitable. Puff haha. There was bursts of ridicule from the candidates below. Haha, Ms. Gourmet Hunter, what kind of cooking are we going to do? A candidate asked loudly, but the tone was teasing no matter what. A bunch of idiots. Luolin covered his head, looking at most of the hunter candidates who were laughing out loud, speechless. Although he knew it would happen, Luolin really didn't understand. Let's not mention whether it's funny or not, even if it feels funny, what's the matter with you laughing at the examiner who can decide the result of your assessment? Do these hunter candidates have no emotional intelligence? On the stage, Menchi already had a look of dissatisfaction at this time, and Buhachi behind her stood up and said loudly, the ingredients for cooking are pigs, as long as they are made of pigs living in the Biscayne forest food is okay. As long as we say that it is delicious, we are qualified, and the test will end after we are full. Now, the second test begins. Buhaji announced loudly. And the moment his voice fell, all the hunter candidates rushed straight to the forest outside the park without any delay. Although they laughed happily before, they were not so stupid after all. What Bajar said was that the test would end after eating. Although Buhachi looks like a big eater in terms of size, but no matter how big their appetite is, there are nearly 150 people here. There are more than 100 dishes, no matter how you think about it, it is impossible to eat them all. So, the assessment of this level is to see who can finish the cooking first. Such thoughts flashed through the hearts of many candidates, and they were immediately full of motivation. Chapter 7. Boom. In the Biscayne Forest Park, pink behemoths ran wildly in groups, and in front of them were hunter candidates crying for their parents. Big-nosed mad pig. This is the only pig that lives in Biscayne Park. At the same time, it is also the most ferocious pig in the world, with a body length of 3 meters and a height of 2 meters. The huge size brings powerful strength. And the name of the other party's big nose is not casual, even if the huge nose is not much better than a rock. Coupled with a violent posture, and, when hunting, they like to group in groups, just like the herds of beasts on the prairie, they charge without fear. Many candidates were directly chased by the group of wild boars with big noses, and then trampled past them mercilessly. Tisk tisk. Luolin stood on the tree and shook his head. Turned to look to the other side. Although the porcupine likes to hunt in groups, it is not without the kind of pigs that are full or eating and take a leisurely walk in the forest. Found one. Luolin looked at the wild boar walking not far away, and there were no other wild boars around. Without hesitation, Luolin rushed up directly, and his figure instantly appeared directly above the big-nosed mad pig. Even Luolin could see the shock in the eyes of the big-nosed mad pig. But, with Luolin's speed, it was obviously too late for the big-nosed mad pig to make any moves. In the next moment, Luolin's fist landed on the opponent's forehead. The forehead is the biggest weakness of the big-nosed mad pig. The opponent's huge nose, which is as hard as a rock, evolved to protect the fragile forehead. Although, Luolin felt a little nonsense, but it turned out that this pig really evolved in this way. Carrying the downed porcupines, Luolin quickly returned to the venue of the second test. In the venue, Menchi and Buhachi looked at the returning Luolin with a little surprise. Looking at the time, from the time the examinees set off to the present, it can be said that they arrived at the place where the big-nosed wild boar lived and returned without any delay. The quality of the candidates this year is pretty good. Buhachi whispered with emotion. HMPH, it's still far away. Menchi snorted softly. She was undoubtedly dissatisfied with the attitude of the hunter candidates before, but she calmed down a little at this time. After all, as gourmet hunters, this is not the first time they have been misunderstood and laughed at. In front of the stove, Luolin didn't pay attention to the two examiners on the stage, but looked at the big-nosed mad pig in front of him. Of course he knows that according to the plot, as long as he roasts the pig on the rack, Buhachi can pass the test for him, but roasting the whole pig directly on the rack, Luolin really couldn't do it. Let's deal with it a little bit. There's still time. Luolin sighed slightly, and picked up the kitchen knife beside him. Although I have never cooked a whole roasted pig, or even eaten it, it should be right to let the blood out first and remove the internal organs when roasting a pig. And at this time, Luolin found himself stronger after the upgrade. Obviously he has never done any butchering work, but just because of the slight difference in feel when cutting with a knife, Luolin subconsciously adjusted the direction of the blade. Although the cutting method is not necessarily the most correct and suitable way, each cut is definitely the most labor-saving. A not-so-good kitchen knife was almost incomparably sharp in Luolin's hands, and it took less than 5 minutes to hollow out the guts of a not-so-crazy pig. As for the bloodletting, Luolin had no choice but to draw 2 more strokes, and then rinse it off with water. Then there's the seasoning. Seeing all the seasonings on the kitchen counter, Luolin could only follow his own feeling. Add a little salt, soy sauce, pepper, onion, ginger, garlic and other seasonings that are pleasing to the eye, and the most important thing is not to forget cumin. Barbecue without cumin is like the West without Jerusalem. A complete novice who hasn't cooked before. It's useless to look forward to. On the stage, Menchi watched Luolin's movements below and sighed slightly. As for Buhachi, he looked at the pig offal that Luolin discarded aside with a look of pity. Those were all meat, too. Another 5 minutes later, Luolin finally started to roast the pig on the fire. Although it was delayed for more than 10 minutes, some candidates had already roasted pigs on fire, but because of their previous lead, most of the candidates came back with the big-nosed mad pig. There are not many candidates who are faster than Luolin, and it will not affect Luolin's score. But, at this time, Menchi's mood was not very beautiful. This is always afraid of comparison. If it was said that Menchi's evaluation of Luolin's operation was not worth looking forward to for a novice, then now compare it with other candidates who have not dealt with the slightest and directly put the pig on the fire. What a good chef seed. Menchi moved. JPG. Time passed by every minute and every second. Looking at the dancing flames in front of him, Luolin turned the grill in his hand from time to time and then brushed it with a layer of special sauce, appearing not in a hurry. Even if candidates next to him who were later than him brought half-baked whole roasted pigs to the stage and passed, he was not in a hurry. Although he is not in a hurry, Luolin has been counting the number of candidates who have passed the examination. He is now the 36th, which is still far from the upper limit. It's almost there. Luolin looked at the should-have-been roasted pig, put it on a plate, and walked towards Menchi and Buhachi. Finally there is a dish to watch. Menchi looked at the plate in front of her and sighed slightly, and took a bite with her knife and fork for the first time. But after Menchi took a bite, Buhachi directly grabbed Luolin's roasted whole pig, regardless of the temperature just after it was put on the fire, and showed Luolin a pig with 3 mouthfuls. It's delicious, it's qualified, Buhachi said without hesitation. Although the taste is so-so, it's passable, Menchi commented arrogantly. Thank you, examiner. Luolin came off the stage with an already empty dinner plate. To be honest, Menchi's evaluation of the first dish is actually not important. As long as he survives the pass of Buhachi, there will be no problem. But what a scheming Luolin is. Although Menchi's evaluation of the first dish is not important, it still leaves a good impression. Then the second dish will be easier. Although following the plot, Luolin can guarantee that he will pass the second test. But Luolin is curious. After all, in the plot, next year's hunter test Kahlua will eliminate all the hunter candidates alone, and obtain the hunter license after completing the first test. So Luolin was curious, if the result of the second test was not that all the staff were unqualified, but if one person was qualified, would Netero intervene? Hey, happy people, Luolin is officially launched. Chapter 8. I can't eat anymore. Buhachi sat on the ground holding his belly that had been beaten several times before, with a happy face. Although it's just a few rounds of belly, but Buhachi ate 70 roasted whole pigs abruptly. And except for Luolin, other people's roasted whole pigs are directly whole pigs without removing the blood and internal organs. A pig with the size of a big-nosed mad pig definitely weighs 2 tons, and 70 pigs are 140 tons. Seeing this scene with his own eyes, Luolin's expression was a little tense. Of course he knew that as a ninja, Buhachi must have used some kind of nen to assist him, but even so, 140 tons was too outrageous. Looking at Buhachi, Luolin just wanted to feel that the other party was born in the wrong world. If it is not the gourmet hunter in the world of Hunter x Hunter, but the gourmet hunter in the world of gourmet captives, then Buhachi's food intake is simply a superstar of the future in the gourmet hunter world. The exam is over. Menchi gave her partner a blank look and announced, 70 people have passed the pig cooking test. Looking at the many candidates below, Menchi got up and said loudly, I'm not as lenient as Buhachi, my assessment is very strict. Menchi thought for a while, and then said, for the cooking test in the second half, I want to eat sushi. Sushi. What kind of food is that? Haven't heard of it at all. Many hunter candidates were all dumbfounded, and each of them looked at each other, making sure that they had never heard of the name of this dish. Hey, I don't know. But it's normal, because it's the local cuisine of an unremarkable small island country, and it's not well known. Menchi chuckled, revealing a mischievous smile. However, I can give you a little help. I have prepared the basic materials and tools for making sushi for you, and then a reminder, in sushi, I only recognize nigiri sushi. After Menchi finished speaking, regardless of the still confused faces of many candidates, she announced directly, the second half of the hunter test begins, and the time is still until I'm full. However, it was different from the first half when all the hunter candidates rushed out of the examination room after Bajar announced the start. At this time, many hunter candidates were all blankly studying the ingredients that Menchi had prepared a long time ago, that is, a large pot of steamed rice. Except Luolin and some ninja who was upright and snickering. Laughing so happily, he definitely knows this recipe. Some candidates who were close to Hanzo had already noticed the reaction of this ninja who snickered and was very upright. Several people looked at each other, and they did not choose to point it out, but prepared to follow Hanzo secretly and observe how Hanzo was cooking. Do you cook with rice? Gon looked curious. There should be other materials. Look at the prepared knives. The rice is not used at all. It should be used to process other ingredients. Kahlua on the side analyzed seriously. There is also nigiri sushi, which should be made by hand. Kurapika was also lost in thought. With the experience of reading poetry and books, oh wrong, having read a lot of books, Kurapika feels as if he has read books about sushi. I remember reading relevant literature. Sushi should be a kind of dish mixed with rice balls and fish with vinegar and other seasonings. Kurapika managed to find relevant memories from his vast knowledge. But it is only a very limited news, after all. Although Kurapika likes to read books, it does not include recipes. Fish. But there is no fish here. Leorio said with a surprised face. It was a normal voice that didn't lower its voice at all. In an instant, the candidates present all looked over, and in the next instant, everyone rushed out. I still need to add vinegar. Luolin learned the expression on his face. Although he knows what sushi is, at best he knows what the finished sushi looks like. How to do it, what seasoning to add, Luolin is actually not much better than others. That's why Luolin didn't rush out to catch fish in the first place. In the forest, Luolin emerged from the lake, looking at a carefully selected, don't know what species, but normal-looking fish returned to the testing venue. Because of the careful selection in the lake, when Luolin returned to the venue, many candidates had already lined up to deliver food to Menchi. Only, minced fish is wrapped in a large lump of rice, sushi is a whole fish wrapped in a ball of rice, sushi is a small fish wrapped in a small ball of rice, fish and rice are skewered, sushi. Note that all the fish mentioned above are live fish that have not been processed in any way. When it comes to dark dishes, they are all face-lifting. The dog just shook his head when he saw those things, let alone Menchi, who is a gourmet hunter and has super high requirements for food. However, Luolin just had fun watching it. And just when Luolin returned to his cooking counter, the bald Hanzo walked up to Menchi with a plate of sushi on his face confidently. Finally it's my turn, dang, the sushi you want. The bald Hanzo presented his sushi with confidence. Looking at it from the outside, it is indeed much better than the previous dark dishes. The most important thing is that the fish meat on it is finally not the live fish with fishbone and scales. After finally seeing a normal dish, Menchi finally breathed a sigh of relief. But just looking at the sushi in front of him and the bald Hanzo's ninja attire, Menchi guessed Hanzo's origin in front of him. So, after eating the sushi, Menchi said unceremoniously, "Unqualified, it's not tasty at all, please do it again." What did you say? Hanzo was stunned, looking at Menchi in disbelief. I said it's not delicious, go back and do it again. Menchi looked at Hanzo seriously and repeated again. What the hell is it not tasty? Isn't sushi just a dish where you squeeze rice into long strips that you can eat in one bite, then add some wasabi and sashimi? Anyone who cooks this kind of dish will taste the same. Hanzo roared angrily. Next second, it's over. Hanzo turned his head to look at the hunter candidate below with a finished face. At this time, the eyes of many hunter candidates were shining, and each of them showed excitement. You idiot! Menchi exploded in anger. Originally, Menki's idea was to ask Hanzo to go back and redo it, to see if the other party's creativity could serve some novel sushi. But who would have thought that when meeting such an idiot, he would tell all the sushi recipes directly? Menchi. Buhaji hurriedly stopped Menchi, who was about to draw, and finally persuaded Menchi to come down. Sitting back on the sofa again, Menchi still looked annoyed. I can't help it. Since the recipe of sushi is already known, let's really test the taste next. Menchi said angrily. Assess the taste. Buha stabbing people have gone numb. Leaving aside Menchi's superb cooking that can rival any 5-star hotel chef, it's Menchi's current attitude. As a partner, he certainly knew Menchi's character. At this time, it is judged by taste, and the assessment standard. It's over. Bachi sighed silently, and sent the news here and his guest to the Hunter Review Committee with his mobile phone. Chapter 9. Hunter tests the second venue. The rice is too hard. Unqualified. No, the fish meat is not cut according to the texture, it is unqualified. The shape of the rice ball is not up to standard. Pinching is too slow. The temperature of the palm of the hand has not been transmitted to the fish, it is unqualified. Menchi's criticisms continued, and the sushi of one candidate after another was judged as unqualified by her. Menchi, you are too strict. Buhaka on the side persuaded. Don't be noisy. However, Menchi, who was already angry, just yelled, and then continued to criticize the cooking of the candidates in front of him. I knew it would be like this. Buhachi on the side was full of helplessness. As soon as Menchi gets angry, she doesn't care about anything. I hope the president will send someone here as soon as possible. Examiner Menchi, this is my dish. Luolin put the plate in front of Menchi, and also placed a plate in front of Buhachi. It is you. Menchi glanced at Luolin in front of her. Because of the cooking test in the first half, she was quite impressed with Luolin. Of course, she also guessed a lot about Luolin's thoughts. But she doesn't care. In other words, she prefers smart people to mindless idiots, especially smart people who can see the purpose of her assessment this time. Let me tell you first, although your cooking in the last round was good, I won't give you a pass just because of this. Menchi said with a soft snort. Of course. Luolin nodded. It's not surprising that this small thought was seen through him, and he didn't even deliberately cover up anything. This is nothing. After all, the purpose of the assessment is to be seen through. At most, he was a little polite, and he didn't look down on the behavior of Food Hunter. What's the matter? As for what he really wants to do and what he really wants to see, he can't see through it with his brain alone. Ha! Menchi lifted the lid of Luolin's dinner plate, and couldn't help but let out a little gasp when she saw the food on the plate. You didn't make sushi according to that bald idiot's recipe. This test is not to follow the nigiri sushi recipe, is it? Luolin shrugged. And I don't think that the sushi made by a person who is not proficient in cooking can satisfy the tongue of a gourmet hunter. Finally, there is someone who understands. Menchi snorted, picked up the sushi on the plate and ate it. The knife skills are unqualified, the grip skills are unqualified, the vinegar ingredients in the rice and the fish dishes are also not good enough. Menchi gave a series of evaluations without mercy. Immediately, many hunter candidates who seemed nervous because of the chat between Luolin and Menchi laughed. Hey, what's the use of any relationship, isn't it still unqualified? The hunter test cannot be passed with a little care. A group of candidates whispered and laughed unceremoniously. But, I like your bold and innovative way of cooking, and it's not unpalatable, you're qualified. Menchi said loudly, pointing. As soon as these words came out, some candidates who were still laughing at Luolin froze suddenly and their faces turned ugly. Bold and innovative, it's not unpalatable. Kurapika was slightly taken aback when he heard Menchi's prompt, and suddenly reacted. I see, What this test really assesses. What is the real assessment? Gon on the side looked puzzled. That's right, this assessment is not really about cooking, but bold innovation, or in other words, it's a test of our courage and ability to explore unknown areas. Kurapika whispered excitedly to Gon and the others. The reason why the examiner chooses sushi, which is so rare that almost no one has heard of it, and prepares various materials for reminders, is that the test is our ability to observe the unknown and the courage to explore. As for the taste of the food, it is equivalent to the answer given after exploring the unknown. It is a manifestation of ability, so naturally it can't be too bad. Really, why didn't I think of it until now? Kurapika looked annoyed. Because there are records of sushi in his impression, he subconsciously began to recall sushi, and then conducted research based on his memories. Another Hanzo appeared in the middle and spoke out the recipe directly, so that he could not see through the real content of this test. Not only Kurapika, but there is no shortage of smart people among the hunter candidates. Because of the hints Menchi gave one after another, they, like Kurapika, have finally seen through the real assessment points of this test. Many people began to prepare the dishes again with excitement. On the stage, Menchi finally breathed a sigh of relief seeing this scene, feeling angry and funny. Obviously the test he prepared was not difficult at all. As long as he used his brain a little, it would not be difficult to guess her purpose at all. But the group first laughed at Food Hunter, and then a spoiler or two popped up, messing up the test she had been preparing for. But now it's fine, and finally back on track. However, among the candidates, there are smart people who see through everything, and naturally there are also idiots who don't understand. I don't agree. At this moment, one of the hunter candidates who had laughed at Luolin earlier turned red-eyed and punched through the cooking counter. Why did he pass the test? You've revealed so many flaws in his cooking. Candidate number 255 Twodo shouted angrily. Just because I'm an examiner. If I say he's qualified, he's qualified. If I say you're unqualified, you're unqualified. Menchi snorted coldly. If she hadn't been an examiner, she wouldn't have paid any attention to such idiots. Asshole, I didn't want to become a chef, but a bounty hunter. I don't agree with you as an examiner, why should you judge me as a gourmet hunter? Twodo yelled angrily. That's a pity, this year I, Food Hunter, will be the examiner, so you can find an examiner you agree with to take the hunter test next year. Menchi said impatiently. Stop joking. Twodo rushed towards Menchi in annoyance, obviously wanting to stage a martial arts performance. However, the moment he rushed in front of Menchi, Buha next to him stabbed. His body was obviously quite heavy, but his speed was extremely fast, and he couldn't react to a slap. Then a terrifying power erupted, and he flew upside down, crossed the park, and passed out at the park gate. Mind your own business. Menchi gave Buha a sharp look, and put the knife back in his hand. After all, if you, Menchi, kill someone, it will be a serious matter. Bu Hasian said with a smile. Really, because of this kind of idiot, I have no appetite at all. Menchi snorted coldly, and said loudly. I'm full, the test is over, the hunter test is the second test, there is only one person who clears the level. Chapter 10. I'm full, the exam is over, the hunter test is the second test, and there is only one passer. Menchi announced directly and loudly with self-willed energy. What? How can this be? My meal will be ready soon. Now the hunter candidates present were immediately overwhelmed, and all of them became anxious. Having completed the set goal, Luolin has returned to the stage at this time, watching the play with joy in his heart. And the most dumbfounded are without a doubt the group of examinees who have seen the purpose of the test but haven't had time to take it into consideration. Compared to those candidates who were going to be eliminated for no reason, they were the most aggrieved. It's over when I say it's over, aren't you convinced? Menchi directly annoyed a group of unconvinced candidates. You bastards have ridiculed the examiners from the beginning, and you are all stupid to death. You can't understand the test questions, and you don't take care of them seriously. It's reasonable to be eliminated now, right? Although that's the case, it's a little too strict. A voice with a little smile suddenly came from above. The people present were stunned for a moment. After hearing the sound, an airship appeared in the sky at some point. The sound just now was the broadcast in the airship. That's the logo of the Hunter Society. Must be someone from the Hunter Review Committee. The candidates present immediately became excited. In their opinion, since the members of the Hunter Review Committee came, they would definitely give them justice. Buhachi, you're meddling in your own business again. Menchi frowned slightly, and immediately looked at her partner dissatisfied. Although the airship of the Hunter Association is not far away, arriving at the scene so quickly must have set off early. Hey, after all, it's not easy for us to step down when things get serious. Buha chuckled and said in a low voice. HMPH. Menchi snorted softly, but said nothing more. At this time, the hatch of the airship, which was tens of meters above the ground, suddenly opened, and a figure jumped down from above. The next second, with a loud noise, the figure fell directly among the candidates, kicking up a large cloud of dust. Who is this old man? Jumped from such a high place, and was unscathed. Many Hunter candidates looked up in bewilderment, looking up at the airship above their heads, and at the figure in front of them, with expressions of disbelief. Isn't it outrageous to jump from an airship tens of meters high without a parachute? That's Netero, the chairman of the Hunter Review Committee, the highest person in charge of the Hunter test. Menchi explained Netero's identity to the candidates. It's said to be the top person in charge, but it's actually just dealing with troubles at such times. Netero said with a smile. Then Menchi, I remember you said in your original report that the test for this level is mainly whether the candidates have the courage to challenge the unknown, and the result of the review is that all but one person failed, right? Netero had a serious face. He peeked at Menchi's hot figure, and couldn't help but secretly praised it. No, it's not, Menchi replied ashamedly, standing in front of Netero at this time, because some candidates said that they looked down on Food Hunter, so they unconsciously became angry. Then another examinee spoke out the method of cooking, so he became irritable, and later there was another examinee who was dissatisfied and provoked, so he overdid it. At this time, many candidates present were stunned when they heard the conversation between Netero and Menchi. Do you have the courage to challenge the unknown? Not cooking. But in the end there are not many fools, Netero said so clearly. If they still don't realize it, then they are really not suitable to be Hunter. Immediately, the faces of the Hunter candidates who had just reacted turned red with embarrassment. Oh ho ho ho, you also admit that your judgment is unfair, Netero said with a smile. Yes, I forget everything when it comes to cooking. I'm not qualified to be an examiner, Menchi said seriously. I voluntarily resigned from the position of Hunter test examiner, please declare this test result invalid. Menchi said, suddenly remembered something. By the way, President Netero, there is a candidate who passed the test, can you not cancel his result? The candidate who passed. Netero swept his eyes and found Luolin in the crowd in an instant, showing a bright smile. No, Netero said without hesitation. Menchi was taken aback for a moment, but she didn't expect that Netero would not even allow such a trivial matter. But what I said is that you are not allowed to resign. Netero changed the subject and said with a smile, you continue to be the examiner and give another exam question, but this time you have to participate as an examinee, so that the examinee will agree with the results of the assessment. How about it, do you agree? Netero looked at Menchi and smiled. No problem. Menchi nodded in agreement without hesitation. Here, President Netero, I haven't agreed yet. Luolin suddenly raised his hand at this moment and said. Oh, you disagree. Netero turned his head, looked at Luolin with a smile and said. Of course, if there is no rematch, as the only candidate, I should be able to get the Hunter license directly. If I retake the test, I will suffer a disadvantage. Luolin ignored the glaring gazes of many candidates, and spread his eyes. Spread the hand and said. That's it. It makes sense. I should give you some compensation. Netero stroked his beard, looking like he was thinking about Luolin's words seriously. That's good. Then how about giving you the special qualifications to register for the Hunter test? Netero suddenly looked at Luolin and said. Specially given, the qualifications for the Hunter test. Luolin was slightly taken aback, but then he reacted. Sure enough, he didn't sign up for the Hunter test. That's right, Luolin, who has mixed 2 games in the Hunter test, actually did not sign up for the Hunter test at all. After all, he was in the elevator box as soon as he crossed over. Not to mention the registration for the Hunter test, I am afraid that he doesn't even have a clear text identity in this world. And his system is obviously not the kind of nanny-level system that will arrange everything. Therefore, there are actually speculations on Luolin's road. And now, Netero's words clearly confirm this point. However, what Netero means now is obviously not to care about this, and let Luolin continue to participate in the hunter test. Luolin chuckled, and said directly, then thank you, old man. Oh ho ho ho, now that it's agreed, then Menchi, you can come up with a question. Netero said with a smile. Menchi was still thinking about what the conversation between Luolin and Netero meant, but when she heard Netero calling her, she quickly responded. Okay. President Netero, can you borrow the airship and send the candidates to that mountain? Menchi said, pointing to a lone mountain in the shape of a round bag in the distance. Oh, of course. Netero looked at the distant mountain peaks, and suddenly showed understanding, and said with a smile. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.